Hello, my name is Carrie Brown and I'm with the Central Mississippi Regional Library System. Today I'm going to be reading to you chapters 1 and 2 of A to Z Mysteries, The Kidnapped King. Written by Ron Roy, illustrated by John Stephen Gurney, published by Random House, New York. Chapter 1. Done! Dink said to himself, smiling. He had solved the last problem on his math paper. He wrote Donald D. Duncan at the top, then glanced up at the classroom clock. 2:15. In just 20 minutes, spring vacation would begin. Class, please get ready for deer time, Mrs. Eagle said. Take out your books and find a cozy place to read until the bell rings, please. Deer stood for drop everything and read. This was Dink's favorite time of the day. Dink was reading Kidnapped by Robert Louis Stevenson. He had seen the movie, but he still loved the story. He took the book to the reading corner and flopped onto a beanbag chair. Josh and Ruth Rose joined him, sprawling on the carpet with their books. The classroom grew quiet, except for the clock's ticking and the sound of pages being turned. Suddenly the room phone rang. Mrs. Eagle answered it, then walked to the reading corner. Dink, she said quietly, you're wanted in Mr. Dillon's office. Josh grinned at Dink and raised his eyebrows. You're in trouble, he said. Mr. Dillon wants me? Dink asked. Why? Mrs. Eagle shrugged. Hurry back, she whispered. Dink put down his book and left the room. Walking down the quiet hall, Dink tried to figure out why the principal wanted to see him. He couldn't think of anything he'd done wrong. Outside Mr. Dillon's office, Dink took a deep breath, then walked in. Mrs. Waters, the principal's secretary, was sitting at her desk outside his door. She smiled. Hi, Donald. You can go right in. And don't look so scared, she said. Mr. Dillon doesn't eat children. Dink grinned, then opened the door to Mr. Dillon's office. The first person he saw was his mother. She patted the empty chair next to hers, and Dink slid into it. There were 3 other people in the room, Mr. Dillon, a woman with yellow hair, and a kid about Dink's age. The kid was dressed like someone in a movie. He had on a long dark blue robe and sandals. Hi, Donald, Mr. Dillon said. Mr. Dillon was shaped like a football. His hair was cut short and his eyeglasses gleamed under the lights. Let me introduce my guests, he said. He nodded at the woman with yellow hair. This is Miss Joan Clinker, and this, he added, smiling at the boy, is Sammi Ben Oz. Dink mumbled hi, then stared at the boy. He was about Dink's size and had black hair and dark skin. His eyes were the color of honey. Sammi is from Kostra, Mr. Dillon said, a small island country in the Indian Ocean. He's come to the United States to learn English. I already speak English, the boy said. He had a soft voice and an accent. Dink thought he looked and sounded kind of sad. Actually, Sammi will live here for a year, Joan Clinker said. I am his tutor. His parents want him to learn American customs. Mr. Dillon looked at Dink. Sammi will be in the 3rd grade with you. We thought you might want to show him around the school, he said. Everyone looked at Dink. He felt himself blushing. His mother gave his hand a squeeze. And Sammi will be staying with us for a few weeks, Dink, she explained. Your name is Dink? Sammi asked. Dink nodded at the boy. Dink, Sammi repeated. That rhymes with think and pink and stink. Making rhymes helps Sammi remember new words, his tutor explained. Sammi can have the spare room, Dink's mother said. With Daddy away on business, it'll be nice to have a guest in the house. I hope Sammi will be friends with you and Josh and Ruth Rose. Sammi giggled. Rose rhymes with toes and nose. Dink grinned. Wait till Josh and Ruth Rose meet him, he thought. Chapter 2. Dink went back to class and handed a note to Mrs. Eagle. Since school was almost out, Mr. Dillon had given him permission to leave early. Dink filled his book bag, then whispered what was going on to Josh and Ruth Rose. Dink's mother drove him and Sammi home to Woody Street. Sammi was quiet in the car. He kept turning around and looking out the rear window. Mrs. Clinker said she'd bring your luggage over in a little while, Dink's mother told Sammi. Dink will help you get settled. Then I'll make you both a snack. Thank you very much, Mrs. Duncan. Sammi said as Dink's mom pulled into the driveway on Woody Street. Dink climbed out of the car with his book bag clunking against his shoulders. "Your room is next to mine," he told Sammi, leading the way upstairs. Dink took Sammi into the guest room. There was a bed, a dresser, and a braided rug on the floor. A reading lamp stood on the table next to the bed. Sammi looked at the room quietly. "This is very nice," he said. "Come on, I'll show you my room," Dink said. He and Sammi passed through the bathroom. On the other side was Dink's bedroom. As soon as Dink stepped into his room, Loretta began squeaking and running around in her cage. "What is that?" Sammi shouted, hiding behind Dink. "Just my guinea pig," Dink said. "Loretta's real friendly. You want to hold her?" "I am allergic to fur," Sammi said, peering into the cage. "Don't let it out." "Okay, I won't," Dink said. "Dink," his mother called from downstairs. "Are you and Sammi ready for a snack?" "Are you hungry?" Dink asked Sammi. Sammi wrinkled his nose. "What are we having?" Dink pretended to think, then said, "Just the usual, rat's ears on crackers." Sammi stared at Dink. "You are joking?" "Yeah, I'm joking," Dink said. "Come on downstairs." Dink's mother put a plate of peanut butter cookies and a quart of milk on the counter. Sammi inspected the cookies, then selected one. "You're not allergic to cookies, are you?" Dink asked. Sammi shook his head and took a small bite. The doorbell rang, and Dink opened the door. Josh and Ruth Rose stood on the steps. Pal, Josh's basset hound, sat at their feet. "We came to see if you and Sammi want to come out and play," Ruth Rose said. She held a purple Nerf football in her hand. The ball matched her purple jeans and sweatshirt. "Hi, guys. Come on in," Dink said. Josh made a beeline for the plate of cookies. Pal padded along behind him. His long pink tongue hung out of his mouth. Sammi jumped onto a chair. "Keep it away," he yelled. "I'm allergic." Dink's mother put her hand on Sammy's shoulder. "It's okay, Sammi. Josh, can Pal wait on the porch?" "Sure, Mrs. D. Come on, boy," Josh said as he led Pal out of the room. "Help yourselves, kids," Dink's mom said, pouring 4 glasses of milk. Josh came back and grabbed 2 cookies. "Why are you wearing your bathrobe?" he asked Sammi. "It is what we wear in my country," Sammi said, sipping his milk. "I think it's beautiful," Ruth Rose said. "I wish I had one." The doorbell rang again. This time it was Joan Clinker, Sammy's tutor. She had come in a taxi with Sammy's suitcases. Dink helped the driver carry them into the hallway. "Hi, Sammi," she said. "How do you like this house?" "There are animals here," Sammi said. "I'm allergic, you know." "I'm afraid we have a guinea pig," Dink's mother said. "Yes, and I saw the dog on the porch," Joan Clinker said. "I hope Sammy's allergies won't be too much trouble." Dink's mother smiled. "I'm sure we'll make out just fine," she said. "Dink, why don't you kids take Sammy's luggage up to his room before you go out to play?" "May I come too?" Joan Clinker asked. "I'd like to look at the room where Sammi will stay. Do you mind?" "Not at all. Dink will show you the way." Dink and Josh lugged the suitcases up the stairs, then plopped them down on Sammy's bed. Ruth Rose followed, with Sammi and his tutor right behind. Joan Clinker walked around the room. She inspected the windows and tested the locks. She rattled the handles on the doors to the bathroom and hallway. "Do these doors have locks?" she asked Dink. Yeah, but we never use them," he answered. "Is there a nightlight?" she asked. Dink pointed to a small blue light sticking from a wall socket. Joan Clinker nodded. "I guess this will do," she said. "Now, may I see Sammy's bathroom?" Dink showed Joan the bathroom he and Sammi would share. The woman checked out everything in the bathroom, then peeked into Dink's room on the other side. "Who sleeps in here?" she asked. "Me," Dink said. "My parents' room is downstairs." "Do they have their own bathroom down there?" Joan asked. Dink nodded as they walked back into Sammy's room. Joan Clinker smiled at Dink. "This will be perfect," she said. She patted Sammi on the head. "I'll see you later, okay?" Sammi looked at her nervously. "Where are you going?" "To my hotel room," Joan said. "But I'll come back after dinner for your French lesson." She took one more look around Sammy's room, then left. Do you play Nerf ball in your country? Ruth Rose asked Sammi. Sammi shook his head. What is Nerf? This, Josh said, tossing the foam ball to Sammi. It bounced off him and fell to the floor. Do you want to change? Dink asked Sammi. Sammi stared at his suitcase. Your mother said she'd unpack for me, he said. She will, Dink said. But for now you can wear some of my stuff. Come on in my room. The 4 kids trooped through the bathroom and into Dink's room. Loretta began running around her cage. Dink found a pair of sweatpants and a sweatshirt in his closet. These should fit, he told Sammi. Sammi looked at the clothes but didn't take them from Dink. Who is going to dress me? He asked. Thank you. Be sure to tune in next week for chapters 3, 4, and 5. Goodbye.